Welcome to the third series in these lecture videos. Today we're talking about air. Last time we talked about earth. Today we're talking about air. And one thing I want to bring to your attention before I move into more theoretical stuff is diaphragmatic breathing. I will include some resources down below as links to demonstrations of this, but in addition to or in tandem with, but not necessarily at the same time as your regular sitting meditations, I want you to start practicing diaphragmatic 360-degree breathing. This is breathing which, as the name suggests, was localized within the diaphragm, but it expands inward and downward as opposed to just being like up here in your chest. I'll demonstrate. That's how most of us breathe most of the time. Diaphragmatic is more. My chest still rose, obviously, as you can tell, but it was more localized to like right here. This is important because that is the breathing pattern which is going to be more helpful in more heated and charged moments of your experience, like during anxiety, during frustration. People say take a deep breath. That's what they're talking about. But having a name for it, diaphragmatic breathing, and having practical sort of demonstrations and advice as to how to fucking do it is a lot better than just saying take a deep breath. Because if I tell you to take a deep breath, you're probably just going to breathe into your chest. And if you have issues with clenching or contracting, especially in your lower abdominals, which a lot of people who have like sexual trauma do, um, this will help with that, or it can help with that. Let's put it that way. So that's something to keep in mind as we move forward. Maybe try practicing that while you're watching this video. Try just okay, so with that out of the way, diaphragmatic breathing, remember that, etch it into your head, look it up. I'll have resources below. Um, but moving on, I want to kind of just do what I've been doing in the other lectures, which is first we're going to go over the key symbol for air, which is that. It's an upward triangle with a line through it, usually in yellow. That's the opposite of Earth, as you can tell by looking at it. Key terms and concepts are logic, critical reasoning, the breath and breathing, as I've just mentioned a moment ago, the imaginal or astral realms, ideas and concepts themselves, conceptual or abstract thinking, and deliberation, planning, so on and so forth. The phenomenological counterpart is going to be the breath, visionary experience of any type, be it memory, spontaneous images, visualized plans, astral or imaginal, and so on and so forth, as well as discernment. And its meditative counterpart is measured, rhythmic, intentional breathing, focus, and then a visual phenomena itself, like, seeing stuff while you're meditating. If earth is about roots and all that's solid, then air is the opposite. It's about that which rises and is anything but solid, at least in the typical sense. Air is about expansion and contraction, the literal act of breathing itself in a measured, controlled, and relaxed manner. And this is, of course, often easier said than done. Air is discernment and deliberate, critical inquiry. Air passes over and through boundaries. One important thing to remember about air: passes over and through boundaries, transcending the line between what is internal and what is external. You breathe in and you breathe out. You breathe in and you breathe out. Air transcends the boundary between what is out here and what is in here. Okay? Air is also about one's visionary capacity, typified in memories as well as astral and imaginal workings wanderings. We'll get more to that in a little bit. In a meditative context, air is mostly going to manifest itself in the literal act of breathing, right? Which can be used to help you work through, overcome, and or dispel any number of difficult, affectively charged moments you will encounter therein. from overwhelming emotion, fear, anger, disgust, sadness. These are all things which will inevitably come up in your meditation at some point. Knowing how to breathe in a deep and steady manner or in a timed rhythmic manner will help you move as if carried on a cloud or else floating through walls. I'm going to repeat myself. Knowing how to breathe in a steady, rhythmic manner is going to help you move as if floating through walls and on a cloud. It's very important for meditation in that regard, because again, as I keep stressing throughout these lectures, meditation is going to bring things up. You are literally passing through the unconscious in the classic sense. You're moving through the root system of your own psyche, of psyche itself, of soul. And there's a lot of rather wretched things down there, at least wretched to waking consciousness. So breathe. On that note, that aspect of it, that breathing is going to carry you through it, and sort of almost like float through walls kind of quality to it, that is going to carry itself through to regular life, especially the discernment, the being able to kind of hold things in a certain way and breathe through it. It sounds wild and it sounds crazy, but that you will, like, I've experienced this, everyone who's been practicing for a certain amount of time will experience this, where being able to sort of like look around things and hold things in your head and to breathe through it until it kind of just, it or yourself, experience, synchronicity, whatever, starts to fade around it in such a way that it's as if the chains just fell off of their own accord. It's very strange, but it's my experience has played it out anyway. So now we're going to move on to the astral. I don't want to spend too much time here. Um, I think I go over this pretty well in the slides, which, as always, are going to be linked below. We are always interacting with the astral. In this, I am going to use astral and imaginal in interchangeable terms. Astral is a more typical way of articulating it. Imaginal comes from, as far as I know, comes more from Henry Corbin, French philosopher, psychologist, mystic, um, uh, very into like Sufism and Jungian psych and all this other stuff. A very interesting fellow to look into. But as far as I understand, the imaginal is kind of his deal. But they mean the same thing. They just have a bit of a different definitional nuances to them, if you will. But back to the crux at hand. There's this intimate, so intimate that it's hard to really catch, because every thought you have, every image that goes through your head, whether it's a memory or just a spontaneous image, anything, literally all the time, that is the astral. And that's not to, I'm not saying that to spook you or to make the astral seem as if it's, how do I put this? Domesticate it anyway. It's more so just to point out that there's some specific typical ways of articulating this stuff which mystifies it in such a way as to make it seem as if the person speaking about it is more wise, intelligent, learned, powerful than they actually are. When I say that the astral is something that you already know about, you just call it imagination, and you've because you grew up in this culture, you've probably been denigrating it since like kindergarten. Snap out of it, focus on what I want you to focus on, get your head out of the clouds. Get your head out of the clouds. That kind of stuff has been pushing all this stuff down since you were a child. And that goes back generations, right? And it's one thing to talk about, the wickedness of thoughts and, cunning, things like that. It's another thing to denigrate thinking itself, which is what we've done in this culture over the past 100 odd years, if not longer. really quite longer actually. Goes back to like Aristotle, um, but if not earlier. But the point is that it's all real. It's all the astral. The astral is real. It's just real of a different degree of energetic condensity, basically. To read more of this, I would recommend look into Parmenides, look into Peter Kingsley's Reality, um, read Jung, read the Red Book, all this kind of stuff. Read the Gnostics. But yes, once you understand that that's what the astral is, and when people are talking about astral, work, it becomes a lot easier to understand how to do things like path working on the tree of life, which is when you sort of do astral imaginal work going from one sphere to the other on the tree of life by way of the paths. Usually you do this with a combination of like tarot and incense stuff and working with deities associated with the paths and so on and so forth, to help sort of jettison inner evolution. Um, Beyond the scope of this course, but that's what you do in that path working. Okay, so I think my microphone died on me sometime in the middle of my rant about the astral. Whatever. I have my really tiny directional boom mic on my laptop stand. Hopefully that's able to catch my voice well enough without too much goddamn interference from all the fans that are going in this room right now. Anyway, moving on to the correspondences. We have first the symbol, which you've seen already. I've already shown you. And then the weapon is the dagger or sword. The cardinal direction is going to be east. The elemental are the sylphs, which are like fairies. The zodiac signs are Aquarius, which is fixed. And then we have Libra, which is cardinal. And then we have Gemini, which is mutable. And the archangel is Raphael. Typically, I don't know if I went over this with Uriel. If I didn't, forgive me. We're going to go over the archangels soon enough anyway. But typically, especially in like the pentagram rituals, Raphael is visualized as clothed in like a yellow robe to match the color of air and shit. The gods associated are going to be Vayu, it's Hindu tradition, Enlil, Sumerian, Shu, more Egyptian, and then myriad wind deities and wind spirits are all going to be corresponding to air. Okay, so this is a pretty short lecture because we're moving on now to homework. And for this one, this first bit of homework is kind of a meta homework. I don't necessarily expect you to dive too deeply into this, but I do think picking up a history of philosophy book and perusing it and reading it in your own free time or watching some lectures on it on YouTube or elsewhere will help you get a good kind of decent grounding in this. Pick up a book on like the pre-Socratics. I'm gonna put a couple up here right now. But the basic point of this one is to make a serious, earnest effort at engaging with the European philosophical tradition. I say European mainly because the traditions of magic that we're talking about here, and aside from meditation, the body scanning, as far as I understand it, comes from Buddhism, but everything else in this course does stem from the West, so-called. And I want to try to keep this course as in-house as possible as far as that goes. Not as a kind of covert chauvinism favoring the West, so again, so-called, as much as it is just avoiding complication and confusion. Because if I start throwing in, okay, well, in addition to Plato, you should be reading Confucius, and you should also be reading Siddhartha Buddha, or you should also be reading these almost all but forgotten African philosophers, and so on and so forth, or religious teachers and traditions. You read the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and all. keep it simple, right? Read a book on the pre-Socratics, read a book on the Socratics, read a book on the Neoplatonists. So on trace for your own head and your own soul the arc of becoming which led to this moment, which both allows and necessitates my making a course about wet in the way that I am, the Western esoteric tradition. Um, that will help you contextualize and ground yourself in this current in a way that just reading strictly magic texts or strictly secular philosophical history texts, neither of which is going to do too well, because both are going to leave something off the table for one reason or another. And then the next bit of homework is to practice simple, measured / rhythmic breathing. Um, Again, remember, don't run, don't cling, stay with it. The basic rhythm I'm going to suggest to you is 2-1-2. Breathe in for a 2 count, hold for a 1 count, breathe out for a 2 count, breathe in for a 2 count, hold for a 1 count, breathe out for a 2 count. When I say 2 count, I don't mean 2, I don't mean 4, I just mean whatever that number is. If you choose 3, I don't know why you would choose 3, but just make sure that your hold is 1/2 of your in/out. That's it. That's the important part of it. The specific number is not, right? So you can breathe in for 4, hold for 2, breathe out for 4. That's good. If you get to a point where you can breathe in for 10, hold for 5, breathe out for 10, that's fine, right? That's the important part of it. The one which is a bit more difficult that I do not recommend necessarily is the fourfold breath, which is the same thing. It's the same number. It's breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. That one's difficult. It's presented like in Damien Eccles' fucking high magic, as if it's easy and simple. If you have a history of trauma of holding your breath, which I know Eccles has PTSD, but if you have a history of breath holding specifically, and you have like really tense like abdominals and things like that, it's hard. It's really hard, trust me. Especially once you get beyond like doing it for a minute or 2 at a time. So just do 2-1-2 or do 1-1 where it's as it sounds, it's breathing in for a set period, breathing out for a set period, no hold. The long and short of this is just do a measured rhythmic breathing. The 2-1-2 and the fourfold are just suggestions. If you can only do a 1-1, that's fine. The idea is just to get intentional and controlled with your breathing. That is the important part. And then the next bit of homework is to do as you did with the earth symbol and just draw an air symbol. Draw an air symbol. Same size, same instructions, just do it in yellow this time. And some of the extra credit is to begin doing tentative astral training and travel. I go a little bit more into detail in the slides below, but basically what you're going to do is the first suggestion would be to start keeping and maintaining a dream journal. Even if you wake up with only a vague sense of what your dream was, like there was a house and there was a meal, and I don't remember anything else, that's fine. Just write that down. There was a house, there was a meal, I don't remember anything else. You can be as detailed or as bullet pointed as you want to be. Depending on your level of dream recall, bullet point might be all you could do, at least to start. But just do something. And then the second bit of advice or practice would be to begin imagining simple objects strictly in your mind. A good hack for this is to, in front of wherever you've been meditating at, whether it's at your desk or on your bed or at an actual altar, is to put a simple object, a tennis ball, a water bottle, an apple is a good choice. Anything that's like a very simple shape and simple color, not too complicated. And to just look at it for a certain amount of time, whatever, until you have a fixed image in your head. You think you can recall it visually in your head, and then close your eyes and attempt to conjure that image in your head and hold it there for as long as you can. Once it starts to fade too much, open your eyes, look at the image again, look at the apple again, look at the tennis ball again, wherever the fuck it was, and rinse repeat until you basically don't have to open up your eyes anymore in order to conjure that image. Just do that again and again with different objects of increasing complexity. And if you just want to try it raw dog style without having the apple in front of you, you can do it with whatever. And the other one is to the best of your ability, try to sit in any memory. Maybe it's a birthday party when you were a kid. Maybe it's a first date from 5 years ago. Maybe it's hanging out with your friends from 2 weeks ago. Going and seeing a band perform a month ago. Whatever. Any memory. That's not really the important part. For obvious reasons, I wouldn't pick a traumatic memory. But you do you. And just try to sit there and stay in the memory. Whenever urges, inclinations, thoughts, images, so on and so forth try to kind of rip you from that memory, just gently return to the memory again and again and again until you can comfortably sit in that memory for however long, right? The specific time doesn't really matter as much as just the ability to sit there and stay at will for as long as you want. That's the important part. As long as you desire and intend to. That's the important part. Okay. And that is the end of air. Once again, I'm going to put in the descriptions below links to diaphragmatic breathing, just basic demonstrations, that kind of thing, as well as the slides to this lecture, which will help kind of contextualize and add more depth to the material I've been discussing so far today. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns or whatever, feel free to message me through whatever available means you have, and I will do my best to respond.